In the vast reaches of the Gulf of Mexico, just off Louisiana shore, is a small species of fish whose name and commercial value are almost unrecognized, even by coastal inhabitants. Yet Louisiana is the nation's foremost harvester of this member of the herring family, responsible for giving an annual multi-million-dollar boost to the national economy. Rich in oil and high in protein, its products are used to supplement poultry, livestock, and fisheries feed. It's used in food preparation by Europeans, by marine, steel, and rubber industries, and in making rust-proof paint, varnish, and soap. Each year, from April to October, more than 1 billion pounds of these schooling fish are brought into Louisiana ports by a rugged breed of fishermen, men who make their living from the sea by searching out the menhaden. As the rays of a rising sun weave a reddish net across misty Gulf waters, a search for the large schools of menhaden begins. It's 5:57 a.m., and the 160-foot diesel-powered Seawolf is already 9 miles from port. At day's end, the large storage compartments located amidship will hold 185 tons of fish. On deck, crew members relax in the cool, salty air as they await the shriek of an air horn, the signal a school has been spotted. Menhaden fishing is an intense 5-day-a-week job. During the 6-month fishing season, up to a 17-man crew works sunup to sundown. Depending on the catch, these vessels often spend several days at sea before returning their menhaden to port for processing. Louisiana's Gulf waters opened to this type of commercial fishing in the 1940s with the building of the state's first menhaden processing plant. Today, with 8 plants located near coastal waters and with an industry fleet of more than 60 boats, Louisiana far outranks any other seaboard state in menhaden production. And with the boost given by the menhaden industry to other types of commercial fishing, 3 of the nation's 5 leading commercial fishing ports are located in South Louisiana. By 9 a.m., the Seawolf is several miles offshore and almost in sight of the Texas coast. For more than 3 hours now, all eyes on the bridge have probed the Gulf surface for the silver whipping flash of schooling menhaden. On standby, 2 40-foot purse-seine boats used to net the fish slice through calm waters. Overhead, a flock of pelicans silently glide toward sanctuary in Louisiana's rugged marshland. The serenity of sea and sky is broken only by the smashing noise of the ship's bow against the water. It'll be another half hour before the first menhaden school is spotted. A mile and a half off the port side, a similar search is underway several thousand feet above the Gulf. Spotter planes are a mid-20th century addition to the menhaden industry. In bygone years, the primary search was conducted from a high-rise crow's nest 40 feet above a ship's midsection. Airplanes were introduced to widen the search over a greater water area. Pilots high over the Gulf can quickly determine if a school is of sufficient size to set the net. The search by air and sea is interwoven by a strong thread of dependency between spotter pilots and ship captains. Success in locating and surrounding the elusive schools of menhaden often hinges on the combined skills of each. The Seawolf spots the first school. A dark spot on the bluish water reveals fish whips, the term used by these fishermen to describe a surface splashing action as the silver-scaled Menhaden break water. A radio check with the spotter pilot confirms the school is a large one.
Motor vessel Seawolf to 17.
Come in, Seawolf.
Did you pick up on those whips off the port?
Yeah, I got them now, and they look like some good ones. School's about the size of a couple of steamers, I guess. Ought to be a good set.
Quickly, the Seawolf changes course. Within 300 yards of the school, an air horn alerts the crew. The piercing sound sends 13 fishermen into the purse boats.
Go right back there and get in. Hey.
Each man has a special assignment, including the captain, who works along with the crew and oversees all operations from netting to unloading the catch. As the aluminum boats clear the mothership, the powerful inboard engines are throttled up to full speed. Both hulls are lashed together, each carrying half of the thousands of pounds of net used in surrounding the Menhaden. In plane-assisted catches, the spotter pilot directs the purse boats to the school. Once the school is reached, he gives instructions by radio to the captain and mate how to best surround the Menhaden.
A little to the starboard, they're starting to move. All right, open up.
As the school's outer limits are reached, the boats separate to form a quarter-mile circle around the fish. Off the stern, the net peels out at a rapid rate. The crew must set the net as quickly as possible before the Menhaden realize their entrapment in a nylon web 1,500 feet long.
Captain Lee, move out a little more to starboard. Now you're looking good.
With the circle more than two-thirds complete, the Seawolf eases forward to guard the opening. Suddenly, the fishermen are detected. Quickly, the Seawolf's stern is swung about and her powerful props churn the water, hoping to keep the fish inside the net. As the purse boats meet, another critical moment is at hand. Too long a delay in closing the net could result in the school bolting into open water. A line running through rings at the bottom of the net is hurriedly attached to a 1,200-pound lead weight and dropped overboard to hold the net down. The net functions much like an upside-down drawstring purse. Just as the purse is shut, the bottom of the net is closed tight as the line is winched in. Once the net is tightened, the heavy anchor called a tom is hoisted back aboard, followed by the steel rings around the bottom of the closed net. Although Menhaden fishing still requires some manual labor, much of the back-breaking work has been eliminated by power equipment. In bygone years, the heavy net was pulled in hand over hand by statuesque giants, seasoned men with immense shoulders, heavy chest, and bicep muscles the size of gallon buckets developed from hard sea labor. To maintain a steady flow of incoming net, rhythmic chants were sung to guide each man.
I left my baby standing in the back door crying, honey, don't go. Don't go. Well, I'd go home, but I ain't got no money. No, I ain't got no money. Do, 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 do.
These chants, along with the sweat and toil in hand retrieving the net, disappeared by the 1950s. The invention of a hydraulic power block to pull the net aboard reduced purse seine crews in each boat from 20 men to 6 or 7 men. While the purse seine has been around for centuries, the net has undergone refinement over the years. Today, such nets are capable of snaring more than 100,000 fish in one setting. Such large catches have sometimes resulted in criticism from sports fishermen who accuse the menhaden industry of depleting game fish populations. Investigations by marine scientists, however, have determined that less than 1% of an average menhaden catch contain fish species other than menhaden. The design of the purse seine allows game and other fish to dive down and escape through the bottom before the net is closed. The toothless menhaden, accustomed to feeding on plankton near the surface, remain in the net. Although this industry is relatively new to Louisiana, menhaden fishing is as old as the American Indian who taught early East Coast settlers the value of this fish as fertilizer.
There she blows!
In the 1800s, when the whaling industry began to play out, fishermen turned to the menhaden to meet an increased demand for lamp and lubrication oil. It was discovered that oil could be extracted by pressing the fish. The remaining sun-dried material made a good fertilizer. A use for the oil was also found in making soap, rope, and paint, and for tanning leather. A few of these fishermen are descendants of those early seamen who fished the Atlantic coast over a century ago. As the net tightening continues, equipment used to transfer the catch aboard the Seawolf is checked out. A long 10-inch hose used to pump fish out of the net is given a thorough inspection. Chilled water is pumped into the fish holds to keep the menhaden fresh until delivery to a processing plant. In the ship's galley, another essential part of the operation is underway as the cook prepares lunch. 75 yards off the bow, the purse seine boats are drawn closer together as the crew closes out its tug-of-war with the net. When the Seawolf pilot receives a signal from the captain to come ahead, the ship is steered alongside the catch. This brief lull in the operation provides the crew with its first rest in blistering 98-degree weather. Easing the large Seawolf up to the small purse boats is a tricky maneuver, especially when Gulf waters are rough. The job is carefully handled by the pilot from a control board amidship. Between the purse boats, the water is changed to a murky brown by 30 tons of menhaden churning up silt and mud. An all-clear signal is given as the captain steps aboard. Before the menhaden can be taken from the water, a tight pocket is formed in the purse seine. Workers begin by tying off the front of the net along the ship's rail. Next, the back is attached to a hook and hoisted to the gaff of a 52-foot mast. As the pocket becomes smaller, the closely bunched menhaden break water. These small 8-inch fish, weighing less than a pound, are commonly known as pogies. The suction hose used to transfer fish out of the purse seine is another modern invention that has made pogie fishing easier. Prior to the 1940s, a large bucket-shaped net holding 2,000 to 3,000 fish was hand-hoisted by block and tackle aboard ship. Today, a centrifugal pump can unload up to 100,000 pogies in less than 10 minutes. As fish and water are pumped from the net, a screen separates the menhaden and sends them speeding into one compartment then the other. The fish fly into the storage bins at a rate of 10,000 pogies per minute, almost faster than the eye can see. Hundreds of thousands of tons of menhaden are taken from the Gulf of Mexico each year, and Louisiana fishermen are responsible for more than 75% of the harvest. Despite this huge catch, wise fisheries management is helping to ensure that these fish remain in abundance. The Louisiana industry has united with menhaden representatives from other southern states to better manage and regulate fishing. Cooperation between Louisiana's menhaden industry and state and federal fishery agencies has led to research projects, educational programs, and a state law which limits the fishing season from late spring to early fall. Yet the fate of the menhaden doesn't rest in these measures alone. Continuing efforts must be made to preserve the state's rich marshland. During the winter, the menhaden are spawning, and by spring, the young are maturing in almost 5 million acres of estuaries along the Louisiana coast. These vast marsh nurseries, rich in nutrients for growing fish and wildlife, are credited with Louisiana not only leading the nation in menhaden fishing, but in shrimp, oyster, and fur production as well. At 11:14 a.m., the menhaden pouring into the 250-ton capacity compartments aboard the Seawolf diminish. The first catch counts out to 75,000 fish in the refrigerated holds. Refrigeration aboard these ships was virtually unheard of until the Gulf of Mexico menhaden industry adopted this method of preservation in the 50s. Refrigeration improved product quality and permitted fishing vessels to remain at sea longer. In the galley, a sea-wise cook checks on a simmering roast, knowing a late dinner can make him the most unpopular hand on board ship. Mealtime is still 20 minutes away. The net must be lowered and carefully folded into the first boats in readiness for the next set. Success in the menhaden business is dependent on many factors, including fair weather, locating the schools of pogies, constant teamwork in which each crew member must pull his own weight, and a good market price for the fish products. Wages of spotter pilots and crew are based on the size of the catch, and whether it has been a good or bad week is reflected in their paychecks on Friday. Home for some of these fishermen is along the Atlantic seaboard, which produces large menhaden catches. Although many have moved to Louisiana, some come from as far away as California and Virginia each year to work the 6-month season. After the first boats are secured to the stern, a lone sentry remains to ensure they trail the mothership correctly. In the mess hall, the crew puts away a meal of roast beef, macaroni and cheese, mashed potatoes and gravy, string beans, tossed salad, and peach cobbler. Topside, the captain takes over while the pilot breaks for lunch. Later, he will eat on the bridge with plate in hand, his darting eyes continually scanning the surface of the Gulf for the next school. At 5 p.m., the Seawolf finally turns for home after making 3 afternoon sets. In the holds are 185 tons of menhaden, a better than average day's catch. Briefly, the engines are idle for the crew to raise both purse boats high above the stern. Once the vessels are secure, the Seawolf gets underway. Carefully, the crew checks the net for damage. Just one small 6-inch tear can result in a loss of thousands of fish, so any holes caused by underwater obstacles are hand-stitched by the next trip out. By 6 p.m., the Seawolf enters Calcasieu Ship Channel. 3 miles ahead lies the processing plant in Cameron, Louisiana, the nation's leading commercial fishing port. It's quiet time on deck. Crew members, tired from the strain of a hot, humid day on the water, sit alone, each pondering his own particular situation. Off to port, a cargo ship headed out to sea slips past unnoticed. One of the world's largest deep-water oil rigs in from the North Sea for repairs attracts only momentary interest. Gently, the Seawolf is guided alongside the dock conveniently located near the processing plant. As the crew disembarks, dock workers attach a suction hose, and the pogies are bailed out of the storage bins and sent speeding to the plant's fish holding compartment. Depending on the number of fish brought in by company boats, these plants sometimes work day and night, processing up to 400,000 fish an hour. Menhaden are processed into 3 products: fish meal, oil, and solubles. From the storage compartment, called a raw box, the pogies are transferred to a conveyor and carried into steam cookers inside the plant. Here, hydraulic presses squeeze out oil and water. The remaining substance, known as press cake, is dried in a rotary drum dryer and processed into meal. If you've dined on chicken lately, chances are your dinner was raised on a poultry diet blended with high-protein Menhaden meal. The meal is also used as feed in swine, catfish, trout, and shrimp production. Fish solubles and oil are the remaining products manufactured at processing plants. A series of decanters and centrifuges are used to separate water and suspended particles from the fish oil, which goes to storage tanks. While Americans use vegetable oil in foods, Europe remains a valuable market where the use of fish oil in food preparation and the manufacture of margarine is traditional. Here in the United States, the oil is used in tempering steel, making marine lubricants, varnish, rubber, and rust-proof paint. During processing, water and suspended particles separated from the fish oil are sent to an evaporator which preserves nutritional qualities and converts the mixture into a third marketable product called fish solubles. They're used primarily in poultry and swine feed. While energy-conscious Americans recognize the importance of crude oil found off Louisiana's coast, marine scientists are quietly working with the Menhaden industry to protect another vital natural resource in the Gulf of Mexico. Menhaden tagging studies are regularly conducted by the National Marine Fisheries Service in cooperation with Louisiana State University's Sea Grant and Fisheries Program and the state's Wildlife and Fisheries Commission. Marine biologists are learning about the habits, movements, and mortality rate of Menhaden by inserting metal tags into the fish that are recovered at processing plants. Population samples of young pogies are also taken from the marsh to help predict catches prior to the season. Additional support for the overall fisheries program comes from educational projects conducted by marine agents with the LSU Cooperative Extension Service. These extension agents who work in the coastal parishes also advise fishermen of new and proposed regulations affecting every facet of the industry. In a state dependent on all of its natural resources, only wise management can ensure that one of the most valuable commercial fish species in the Gulf of Mexico will remain in abundance off Louisiana's coast. And as long as the large schools of menhaden are out there, this obscure breed of fishermen will continue their multi-million-dollar-a-year contributions to a style of living Louisianians affectionately refer to as the good life.
Lord, Lord, don't go. Lord, Lord, don't go.
I left my baby standing in the back door crying, honey, don't go.
Lord, Lord, don't go.
I left my baby standing in the back door crying, honey, don't go.
Lord, don't go.
My little woman shakes just like jelly all over.
From her shoulders on down.
My little woman shakes like jelly all over.
From her shoulders on down.
I'd go home, but I ain't got no money.
Lord, Lord, ain't got no money.
Well, I'd go home, but I ain't got no money.
Lord, Lord, ain't got no money.
I'm going fishing, few days and I'll go back home.
Yes, Lord, I'm going back home.
I'm going fishing a few days, then I'm going back home.
Yes, Lord, I'm going back home.